The car sputtered. Trish and Derry pulled over. An empty highway stretched before them. A beat-up van roared past. It slowed. They saw a figure dumping something wrapped in bloody sheets. Fear coiled in their stomachs. What had they stumbled upon? This chilling scene from the film Jeepers Creepers sent shivers down spines. But the true horror lies not in fiction, but in the real-life events that inspired it. Jeepers Creepers captivated audiences with its terrifying premise. A creature, awakened every 23 years, stalks and devours victims to replace his own aging body parts. But the film's director, Victor Salva, drew inspiration from a far more disturbing source. A news story about a real-life monster who terrorized the American Midwest. This real-life monster was Dennis DePue, a seemingly ordinary man who harbored a dark secret. His crimes, a chilling echo of the film's plot, involved stalking, violence, and a chilling disregard for human life. DePue's story serves as a terrifying reminder that sometimes the line between fiction and reality is terrifyingly thin. Dennis DePue on the surface seemed ordinary. A teacher, a husband, a father. But beneath this facade lurked a predator. His reign of terror began with petty crimes, escalating to violence. He stalked women, his blue eyes turning cold with obsession. He threatened, harassed, and even assaulted those who crossed his path. His crimes escalated. He graduated from stalking to kidnapping. Then, the unthinkable murder. He left a trail of victims, their lives brutally cut short. Their only crime being in the wrong place at the wrong time, crossing paths with a monster disguised as a man. Section 4. Echoes of Reality: Jeepers Creepers and the DePue Case. The parallels between DePue's crimes and Jeepers Creepers are chilling. The film's opening scene, where Trish and Derry witness the creeper dumping a body, mirrors a real-life encounter between DePue and a couple. They saw him disposing of something in a suspicious manner. Their decision to report it to the police ultimately led to DePue's capture. The creeper's truck, a hulking, rusty behemoth, evokes the real-life vehicle DePue used to stalk and abduct his victims. The film's sense of dread, the feeling of being hunted by an unstoppable force, mirrors the terror DePue's victims must have felt in their final moments. Section 5. The Final Stand. A Life for a Life. This is the story of a man whose actions led to a dramatic and tragic conclusion. DePue's reign of terror, like the creepers, couldn't last forever. His actions had consequences, and the law was closing in on him. Cornered by police, he engaged in a final, desperate act of violence. The tension was palpable as officers prepared for the worst. He took a hostage, a young woman, using her as a shield against the advancing officers. Her fear was evident, a pawn in his deadly game. He held her life in his hands, a chilling reminder of his complete disregard for human life. The officers knew they had to act carefully. In the ensuing standoff, DePue's true nature was laid bare. He was a man driven by desperation and fear, willing to do anything to avoid capture. He was a desperate, dangerous man, clinging to his last vestiges of power. The situation grew more intense with each passing moment. In the end, he chose to end his own life rather than face justice. The officers were left in shock, the scene a grim testament to his final act. His death, a violent punctuation mark on a life of terror, left behind a trail of unanswered questions and shattered lives. The community would never forget the fear he instilled, nor the lives he destroyed. Section 6. Blurred Lines. When reality bites back at fiction. Jeepers Creepers, while fictional, takes on a chilling new dimension when viewed through the lens of DePue's crimes. The film, originally intended to be a work of pure imagination, suddenly feels like a grim reflection of reality. The eerie parallels between the movie's plot and DePue's real-life actions make it hard to separate fact from fiction. The film's scares are amplified. Its themes of vulnerability and the darkness lurking beneath the surface of everyday life made all the more real. Each scene, each moment of terror, resonates more deeply when we realize that such horrors are not confined to the screen. They can, and do, happen in the real world, often in the most unexpected places. It serves as a reminder that the most terrifying monsters are often not the stuff of myths and legends, but flesh and blood human beings capable of unspeakable acts. These individuals walk among us, hidden in plain sight, their true nature masked by the mundanity of everyday life. The line between the ordinary and the horrific is thinner than we might like to believe. DePue's case forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that the monsters of our nightmares are often reflections of the darkness that exists within our own world. His story is a stark reminder that evil is not an abstract concept but a very real presence that can manifest in anyone, anywhere, at any time. It's a sobering thought, one that lingers long after the credits roll and the popcorn bucket lies empty. As we leave the theater and step back into the real world, we carry with us the unsettling realization that the boundary between fiction and reality is not as clear-cut as we might wish. The stories we tell and the fears they evoke are deeply intertwined with the world we live in. Section 7. The enduring terror of the real. The horror genre often explores the darkest corners of the human psyche. It delves into our deepest fears and anxieties, bringing them to life on the screen. But Jeepers Creepers, inspired by a real-life monster, reminds us that sometimes, reality is far more terrifying than anything we can conjure in our imaginations. The film is based on the chilling case of Dennis DePue, a murderer whose heinous acts shocked the nation. The film's enduring power lies not just in its scares but in its reflection of a chilling truth. Monsters do exist, and they can be far more horrifying than any fictional creation. Sometimes they walk among us, hiding in plain sight. They blend into our everyday lives, making it difficult to distinguish between friend and foe. The next time you find yourself captivated by a horror film, remember Dennis DePue. His story is a stark reminder that the line between fiction and reality is often blurred. Remember that the line between fiction and reality can be terrifyingly thin, and that the horrors we see on screen can sometimes pale in comparison to the real-life monsters that lurk in the shadows. The most enduring terror comes not from the shadows, but from the human heart itself. It is within us that the true monsters reside, waiting to be unleashed.